As she and her staff, Nielsen, flew back to Washington Friday evening, Nielsen called the president. She knew he was angry with her. "Sir, I know you're really frustrated," she told him. These guys, Lou Dobbs and Ann Coulter are not happy, so that means the president is not happy. I cannot get over that. It's the president. It's like, I know it's Donald Trump, but it's still, it's so weird to think. The president of the United States calling his head of immigration, pretty much, head of the border of the country, into the country and say, into his office and saying, "Listen, I'm not happy. I am not happy. Ann Coulter and Lou Dobbs aren't happy. This is a real problem. Ann Coulter and Lou Dobbs are mad." That's insane. It's absolutely insane. Nielsen knew that Miller wanted her out, so she spent the flight huddled with aides on a strategy for getting control of the border, a Hail Mary pass, calling it the 6 C's: Congress, courts, communications, countries, criminals, and cartels. Unbeknownst to her, Nielsen's staff started to work on her letter of resignation. Oops. When Nielsen presented her plan to the president at the White House, he dismissed it and told her what he really needed was a cement wall. "Sir," she said, "I literally don't think that's even possible." They couldn't build it, and even if it would work, which it wouldn't, Miss Nielsen told him, the designs for the steel barriers had long since been finalized, the contracts bid upon and signed. So, you already decided on steel. It's too late. So, giving the president exactly what he wanted to hear, and the president responded by saying, "Kirsten, I want to make a change." The president said he would wait a week for her to announce her resignation, leave time for transition, but before Nielsen left the White House that day, the word was leaking out, and by the evening, Trump was tweeting about it. Saying, quote, "Secretary of Homeland Security Kirstjen Nielsen will be leaving her position, and I would like to thank her for her service." The dismissal was a turning point for Trump's immigration agenda and the start of the purge that ushered in a team that embraced Miller's policies. Trump dismissed Claire Grady, the Homeland Security Undersecretary, and moved Mr. McLean to take Nielsen's old job. Within 2 months, Sisna was out as well, replaced by Ken Cuccinelli. I was right to say, former Virginia Attorney General and immigration hardliner. On August 12th, Cuccinelli announced the government would deny green cards for immigrants deemed likely to become public charges. 9 days later, McLean announced regulations to allow immigrant families to be detained indefinitely. Awesome. In the months since the purge, the president has repeated his threat of placing tariffs on Mexico to spur aggressive enforcement at the border. McLean and Cuccinelli had embraced restrictive asylum rules, and the Pentagon approved shifting $3.6 billion to build the wall. Trump has continued to face resistance in the courts and public outrage about his immigration agenda, but the people who tried to restrain him have largely been replaced. So that's great. In the interview with The Times this past summer, the Trump said he had seriously considered sealing the border during March, but acknowledged that doing so would be very severe. The problem you have with laws that the way they are, we can't have 1,000 of our soldiers standing up there, 100,000 of our soldiers standing up there. They can't do a thing, Trump said ruefully. So there is a book coming out on the subject. This is an excerpt from a book, Border Wars, Trump's Assault on Immigration, to be published on the 8th of October. So that's very, very interesting. Very, very disturbing in many different ways. All right, let's talk a little bit more Trump now. And specifically about his number one defender, New York City Mayor and frothy mouth cable news screw-up Rudy Giuliani. Is arguably President Trump's most vigorous public defender, spending what seems to be every waking moment spewing unhinged conspiracy theories, yelling at Laura Ingraham or Chris Cuomo, and getting Trump in even more legal trouble, like admitting the whole thing that kind of got him impeached, or may get him impeached. Given all that, you'd think Trump would appreciate having a rabid lapdog like Rudy on his team, going out there and doing everything he can for him. Like, I mean, at least you can. I mean, Rudy has made some mistakes before, but I don't even know if Trump considers them mistakes, and he doubtless has been a lapdog, which supposedly is what Trump wants, right? Well, wrong. Trump's relationship with Giuliani is marked not so much by the warmth you'd expect between two elderly racists, but with the president being a raging asshole to his faithful sycophant. So, here He says, so from the Wall Street Journal, Giuliani has known the president for decades, but bolstered his standing with Trump with his loyal support of his campaign in 2016. Trump always didn't return the favor. He often needled the former mayor for falling asleep on long flights and joked about whether Giuliani was looking at cartoons on his iPad, a former aide said. So there's a famous iPad where he showed text on it, Laura Ingraham. It's too bad, I guess, but it's kind of just being a little bit of a tool. It'll be being a little bit of a teenage boy to your friend. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. During the Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin's 2017 wedding reception, the president berated Rudy in front of others for spitting while he talked and ordered him to stand somewhere else, a former aide told the paper. Even while Rudy is doing his damnedest to put a positive spin on Trump's abhorrent behavior, the president apparently can't help but be a huge jerk. According to the former campaign aides Corey Lewandowski and Dave Bossie, Trump was still not pleased with Giuliani even after he appeared on many different Sunday talk shows, even then to defend the candidate literally from something that literally is indefensible, the Access Hollywood grab him by the pussy tape. Man, Rudy, you sucked, Trump said, according to a book by Lewandowski and Bossie said about the Journal. You're weak, low energy. Now the Democrats officially launched an impeachment inquiry into Trump and Rudy's efforts to manipulate Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and into interfering in the 2020 election. I can't help but wonder if it's only a matter of time before Trump really tells Giuliani what he thinks of him, and still probably Rudy Giuliani will continue to defend him. Yeah, again, it's not the worst. Like, I mean, I kind of think two conflicting things about this. But okay, Giuliani's not really doing Trump any favors by being out there and admitting to things that got him impeached. But who else is going to defend him? And who else is going to defend him that vigorously and that, like, so committed? Because he still probably thinks he gets some, like, big position, like Secretary of State, because that's really what he's always wanted to be. But he wants to be some kind of proximity to power. Like, he's not quite done yet. Like, I mean, I don't know how much money he has, probably spent it all watching cartoons on his iPad or something, after his big boom, with 9/11 and all that stuff. But again, I really think Giuliani's not obviously pretty awful at defending someone on TV. Like, any politician other than Trump would probably fire him after his Chris Cuomo appearance, last week. But the whole thing is, or was that 2 weeks ago? I don't even know. The whole thing, like, you gotta be completely honest and say, who's gonna come and defend Trump? I don't know. I really don't know. Yeah, that's really quite something. So, yeah, we're gonna move on now to another Trump associate, former representative, Mr. Chris Collins. He literally, and this is by Vivian Wang in the New York Times with the introduction. It was an opportunity that Representative Chris Collins, a Republican from Western New York, believed was too good to pass up. This is the part of New York where people still put the Confederate flags out in their lawn. It's very rural, very kind of white area of New York that he represents here. There's a guy who tried to, I think it was like a centrist guy who tried to primary challenge him in 2018, still lost, and he was still facing insider trading allegations back then, but he's now pleaded guilty to them, so he's going to have to resign. So it'd be interesting to see if a Republican can get that seat or a Democrat can, but I don't know. Yeah, so he was so confident in his investment, Chris Collins was, in an investment of an Australian drug company that he hawked it to his children, his staffers, and even other members of Congress. One of the things was, who in Congress have you talked with about Innate, said Collins, of the company Innate Immunotherapeutics in a 2017 interview. The big question would be, who haven't I talked to? A version of that question became Collins' undoing. On Tuesday, he pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit securities fraud and lying about it to federal investigators after admitting passing private information about Nate to his son to help him avoid financial losses. Collins faces now a prison sentence of up to 10 years. He'll probably get like 2 months if I know the justice system and all. His son and the fathers of his son's fiancée are also expected to plead guilty to related charges this week. I regret these actions beyond anything, said Collins, telling the judge Vernon Broderick in Federal District Court in Manhattan. In a speech, Collins apologized to his son, who I've spent my life supporting, and to his constituents. I've tried to be a model citizen to them, and the actions I took are anything but. Charges obviously stem from Collins' significant financial ties to Innate. He owned nearly 70% of the company's total stock, making him one of the largest shareholders. He's also a member of the board of directors. Like, this is quite an interesting way to kind of go about it. According to prosecutors, Collins, who rose to prominence as the first sitting member of Congress to endorse Trump in the 2016 election. I mean, I love it. Like, he's that kind of guy. I feel like he's like this reeks to me of kind of like gambling. Like, you got to go out there, you got to push. Like, he likes taking very risky bets, like some random company. He just not seem to be a very smart guy. Does not seem to be a very smart guy. Like, it's pretty hard, I think, to get busted for insider trading. He somehow managed to do it, but still, it's a pretty big achievement. But like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm no expert on insider trading, but it feels like that's not something that you get. Like, knowing the regulation system around this stuff, like having a somewhat of an understanding about it, like it can be kind of hard. And the fact that he did it, and give him credit for still winning his election, but still, yeah, he's out now. And yeah, according to the prosecutors, the way it played out was that Collins, who rose to prominence, again, endorsing Trump, he was at a congressional picnic in June 2017 when he learned through a private company email that Innate had just failed a critical trial for a drug to clear MS. On the drug, the prosecutor said, was the company's only significant product. So pretty much the company sucked. Like, the company was not going to get his big MS drug to go anywhere. And he was like, this drug is the best. It's like, again, not a very smart guy. Like, I'm continuing to make my case here. Immediately, Collins called his son, Cameron Collins, to encourage him to sell his shares before the test results became public, saying, quote, "I was in a very emotional state," Collins said Tuesday of that moment, adding that he knew the news would have a devastating effect on Innate's stock price. The Congress called his son several times in quick succession before they finally connected on the seventh try, according to call logs. So it's like, we need to call Cameron, I need to call Cameron, Innate is gonna fail. Like, it's kind of like, it was just so messed up. Like, my baby is dying. Innate will no longer be successful. Like, that is just so funny. Yeah, like, the tip helped Cameron avoid more than $570,000 in losses when the company's stock price later plummeted, prosecutors said. Collins admitted to, among other things, illegally tipping his son while standing on the White House lawn, said the United States Attorney in Manhattan, Jeffrey Berman, in a news conference shortly after the plea. Cameron Collins, as well as Stephen Zarsky, the father of Cameron Collins' fiancée, are expected to plead guilty on Thursday. Cameron Collins had advised that Zarsky and Mr. Zarsky's daughters to sell their shares. Prosecutors said Zarsky also passed the tip to others. So apparently, the Collins, the representative, got them hooked on this like stupid drug company. So, I mean, honestly, I think Chris Collins, the representative, should just face all the heat for just giving bad advice. But I do get what you're saying. But the younger Collins' fiance was not charged. Nice. The congressman, who ranked as one of the wealthiest members of Congress, was not accused of making any trades. But the act of passing information along can, under circumstances, constitute an insider trading violation. Collins is scheduled to be sentenced on January 17th, though the maximum sentence is for 10 years. Prosecutors and defense lawyers agreed to seek a sentence between 46 and 57 months. So that's, 2 years around? Collins' plea capped a political career that's been remarkable to that point for its resilience. So, yeah, he won re-election even after being indicted on insider trading charges, which he pleaded guilty to on Tuesday. And until this week, he'd offered hints he planned to run again, despite pleas from fellow Republicans to step aside. So, yeah, within hours, he resigned his seat after he pretty much failed in court. So, yeah, that's, again, just absolutely hilarious. A guy who's not very smart, getting his kids and his kids' friends and his family's friends just hooked on this stupid drug a stupid drug company that just turned out to be an absolute fail of an idea. But yeah, so it just kind of tells you. I mean, I don't really think it's like smart or right really to tie him too much to President Donald Trump. But again, it's very interesting that this guy. I think it kind of makes sense that the